The sky is falling in the SEC. I certainly don't believe that, despite a 6-6 record out of conference. But at Mississippi State, definitely one of the low points for the conference after a loss to South Alabama 21-20. Bring in Ethan Lee, who's going to talk about it. But Ethan, don't worry about it. We're going to trudge forward and look at South Carolina coming up Saturday night. Ethan joins us from For Whom the Cowbell Tolls. So, Ethan, just to put a capper on this one, 17-0 lead at the half. Your kicker, Weston Graves, 15 for 18 in 2015, so very dependable.
Yeah.
Misses this 28-yard kick at the gun that, despite a disappointing performance, could have put that one to bed and said, okay, that was rough, but we won it, we can move forward, and unexpectedly he misses.
You know, he's had a few misses there. If I remember correctly, last season he missed on an extra point or two. So there were some concerns about how accurate he would be coming into this year. But as a whole, we were pretty set on Weston Graves. He was our kicker. You know, we knew he would make more than he would miss. And we thought we had, as a whole, put away all of our kicking issues. And apparently we haven't done that just yet.
Ethan, I'd like to get your take on the quarterback situation. 4 quarterbacks vying for it, at least into early August. It came down to Fitzgerald and Williams. Nick Fitzgerald gets a couple drives under his belt, doesn't get the job done, misses on 3 passes. It was Damian Williams' ball game from there. Played a pretty good first half. The offense bogged down in the second half, but he did put together what would have been a game-winning drive.
Yeah, I really liked what I saw from Williams, but it was just really confusing given how Williams and Fitzgerald were neck and neck, supposedly, and Fitzgerald apparently did enough to get the start for this game because he was the announced starter on the Jumbotrons. So everybody's expecting this to be Fitzgerald's game. Williams comes in, does really well, doesn't really have the arm to throw deep, apparently. For whatever reason, we were not going deep. A lot of people think that's Williams' accuracy or inaccuracy, inability to go deep. So there were some concerns there. And then a lot of people at that point were saying, okay, if Fitzgerald's not going to get his shot and Williams isn't performing, why not throw Nick Tiano in? He's the freshman. Let him just take over the reins and build on him. For whatever reason, Dan Mullen wanted to stick with the guy who was the most consistent. But consistency just wasn't enough to win this game. We need more big plays. And we just didn't get those big plays.
The running game's been a concern since Josh Robinson left campus. You get most of your running out of the quarterback position, certainly with Dak Prescott last season, and even with Damian Williams in Game 1 of 2016, 12 rushes for 93 yards. Fred Ross, wide receiver, breaks one for 46. But in terms of the running backs producing the rushing yardage, it's not exactly what we see from SEC contenders that should push a team like South Alabama around.
Starting off in the game, the offensive line actually looked pretty good. They were handling South Alabama's defensive front, not having any issues. You were able to get Brandon Holloway out into space, no problems. Arius Williams and Ashton Shumpert got a few carries here and there, but nothing substantial. And then you have Fred Ross on that sweep, carrying it 46, I believe. Yeah. So a lot of people were thinking, okay, so running game, it's going to be fine. We can get that solved. In the second half, if I remember correctly, Holloway only had 12 yards on 6 carries. And that's just not going to work. In that same time span, Arius Williams and Keith Mixon got a combined 3 carries. So, it was really mind-boggling. Nobody was really sure what was going on. Damian Williams in that stretch, he did pretty well running the ball. And, you mentioned that he was the leading rusher. As a whole, he looked really good running the ball, but just it wasn't enough. He got, on that last drive, he had a nice 18-yard run, really padded his stats a little bit, helped bring his yards per carry up, but just wasn't enough.
You know better than I do, Ethan, with LSU on deck, the rest of the vaunted SEC West, even another difficult non-conference game having to go all the way to BYU. The road is difficult for anybody in that division. I hate to put the term must win on this game, but it's obviously a beatable opponent, even though they did come out with an SEC win in South Carolina. Your thoughts about the Gamecocks? We both watched the game against Vandy. It was on national TV. Your thoughts about what you saw?
South Carolina's defense looks really good, but their sample size is really small, and their sample size is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt not known to have great offenses, especially under their current coaching regime. They just haven't had an offense whatsoever. And you look at South Carolina's defense, it looks stout, looks good, still gave up 10 points in the first half to Vanderbilt. So there's some questions there about how they let Vanderbilt score 10 points on them when Vanderbilt really can't score 10 points on a plastic bag. But the fact that they were able to make those halftime adjustments, able to correct the issues that they had, and then offensively they were able to turn their offense around. Perry Orth looked pretty good. So, they had some good pieces going, and I would say that this is a must-win for both programs, really. For Will Muschamp, he needs to get that momentum rolling. For Mississippi State, needs to find some momentum, some life.
Yeah, South Carolina seems to be in that situation that a lot of teams find themselves in that have two quarterbacks, where one is the rushing threat and the other guy stands in the pocket and delivers the ball. And it worked out last time out in Nashville, where Perry Orth was the savior of sorts, not to overplay his effectiveness, but he did deliver the drives that won the game after they had gone with Brandon McElwain for part of the first half to try to create some kind of dynamic running threat. But it was Orth who delivered the ball on time and got the plays down the field to win the game. So with Mississippi State losing in week one unexpectedly, and I don't know if you heard this stat, Ethan. I think this is an ESPN Power Index type of stat. The win probability was the lowest by any winner of a college football game in the last 5 years, like 2.3%.
Yeah, they were saying it's the biggest upset that college football has seen in the past half decade. It's not a stat that I'm fond of by any imagination. Yeah.
So we're going to put that to bed to a certain extent, but I would like to know, since you've got the pulse of Bulldog Nation, how hard was it to take that loss? Because we're not talking about a team that was going to vie for a national championship or any kind of aspirations like that, but it's a team that consistently wins at least half its games in the SEC, gets to postseason play. There are those type of aspirations out there.
I mean, let me put it this way. Dan Mullen's first season in Starkville was 2009. South Alabama's first season ever was 2009. Where we are in the 8th year of the Dan Mullen era, we shouldn't be losing these games. And Dan Mullen, up to this point, has never lost these games. South Alabama, not to disrespect them, but we have no business losing to programs that have been around for under a decade.
Yeah, we've had actually Joey Jones, the South Alabama head coach, on 5 or 6 times, and we've talked about his building of the program and playing the heavyweights, and that maybe one day they would break through. Well, that day came on Saturday. So a good feeling for Saturday's game against South Carolina?
A lot of people are concerned, myself included, just because of what we saw. Granted, the schemes were very vanilla on both the offense and the defense, but the fact that there were no halftime adjustments, the fact that the scheme remained the same throughout the game, and when it wasn't vanilla, as soon as Dan Mullen thought we had a comfortable lead, he pulled the foot off the gas and started pumping the brakes a little bit. The offense slowed down in the second half, and there was just no adjustment up until that final drive.
Ethan Lee writes for SB Nation's For Whom the Cowbell Tolls, Mississippi State's platform, their athletics across the board. Of course, it's football season, so that's what everybody cares about at this point. Ethan, we appreciate you setting the stage for the South Carolina matchup.
Yeah, thank you.